Welcome to What to Watch with me, Toby Earle, the show which is astonished to hear that if an asteroid was on course to strike Earth, scientists have concluded copying the plot of the 1998 blockbuster Armageddon and sending astronauts to blow it up, it wouldn't work. A Michael Bay film found to be lacking in reality? That's as shocking as Theresa May bringing back her withdrawal agreement for the 732nd time. Until we devise a more foolproof way to deal with an asteroid than training miners to be astronauts, we'll speak to the brightest stars off the most intergalactic screen in the corner of the room, or in your Aerosmiths. Coming up on the show today, Simon Amstell discusses Benjamin, his directorial debut about a director racked with self-doubt and intimacy issues. He's private, Benjamin. Charity Wakefield has been locked up in a Mexican prison, but she'll soon be free in action comedy Bounty Hunters. Ed Stafford spent 2 months on the streets to observe the scale of the homelessness crisis, and he shares what he witnessed. I meet the winners, but don't touch their trophies at this year's Broadcasting Press Guild Awards. And I'll give you my top TV picks of the week, the shows which, if you miss, will make you lonelier than the outcast who would ever choose to order a banana pizza. The scale of the homelessness crisis is visible every single day, and the voices of some of those who've been left behind are heard in 60 Days on the Streets, a new series where former Army officer and explorer Ed Stafford spends 2 months living on the streets of London, Manchester and Glasgow. This Thursday at 9 p.m. on Channel 4, Stafford sleeps rough around the Strand. He shared how this experience made him feel like a ghost.
I've spent a lot of time in specifically survival situations, and I was quite surprised how little survival there was involved in being on the streets. It's a nice reflection on society, really, but there's a huge amount of generosity now towards homeless people. So in London, for example, members of the public drop food all of the time and don't have to sit and ask for it, don't have to write a little sign begging or anything like that. There's constant generosity coming in. And then in the evening, choice of different food handouts as well, as in vans that come in with curry or Asian fusion or different options. So from a survival perspective, it wasn't physically difficult. I can sleep in a sleeping bag. You know, that's not. I don't think that's not a hardship particularly. I suppose, but everything is relative, isn't it? You know, if you fall on hard times, end up on the street, and you're not used to spending time outdoors, then simply sleeping in a damp doorway that smells of urine in a sleeping bag, it does become an issue. So yeah, I do have to put that in perspective. I think it would be fair to say it was a community that I kept a bit at arm's length, and I think, like many members of the public, I was quite intimidated by the concept of sitting down with homeless people. I think you've got about 5% of the public who will go and regularly have a chat with a homeless person, but 95% aren't doing that. And I think it's because it's a bit scary. Maybe they don't want to have to say no if they're asked for money, and so I was intimidated by it. I remember on day 2 of filming actually saying to the series producer, I don't really want to go and sit and talk to anyone. He's like, you're kind of going to have to, Ed, because that's what your job is. But in doing so, of course, you sit down next to somebody and they end up being really lovely and tell a heartwarming story or a tragic story, and suddenly I was being treated with respect, but I was also having really, really lovely conversations, and I suppose the biggest shift then was realising, crikey, this is a issue with normal human beings. You know, you don't have to have made too many wrong decisions to end up in this predicament. So it just humanised the whole thing, I think. Yeah, we would really love to have smashed the stereotype that a lot of homeless people were taking drugs, but from my experience, most of the money that I saw being given to homeless people was going on drugs. And I know that, I mean, I'm not really saying things that people don't know, but you know, most of the homeless charities recommend not to give money, give all sorts of other things in terms of assistance, and time actually was one of the things that people seem to appreciate the most, just sitting down and having a chat. But unfortunately, most of the money was going on alcohol or drugs. Yeah.
What should people do when they do see someone sleeping rough? Because people sometimes feel quite awkward about how they should react.
Yeah, I think you can't underestimate just the power of sitting down and having a chat. I mean, a lot of people described being homeless as almost being a ghost or being a spirit that's only just occupying this world. I think we all have the ability to tune out certain elements of society that we don't feel comfortable with, or we just don't engage with. And homeless people have, a lot of the ones that I spoke to said that they do feel almost like ghosts on the streets, so just sitting down and having a chat. And it is intimidating, but I don't think it's too risky a thing to encourage people to do. I think, you know, the more people just treat homeless people like everyday people and giving them the time of day, the more they will respond and, you know, feel like decent human beings and actually, you know, I don't know, hopefully get a bit better, especially those who are struggling with mental health and stuff. Yeah.
Now for what we call WTW, PCT, Q, O, T every week. W. What to watch's pop culture Twitter quote of the week. What a celebrity said on Twitter this week. At Instagram, please contact me. Tweeted Herbie fully loaded actress and professional Lindsay Lohan, during the great Instagram outage of 2019. While millions, perhaps even billions, panicked as they were unable to view badly framed photographs of people they've never met, Lohan headed straight for the top for answers. Thing was, they're a bit busy. Next week, expect Lohan to take her car to a pit lane during a Formula 1 race and ask the crew to change her oil. To predict winners at award ceremonies is a risky business, although I'm confident the following spirit-draining dish will not win a canny at this year's Canapé Awards. There was real talent on display last Friday at the 45th Broadcasting Press Guild Awards, which crowned the year's premier achievers in TV and radio, and I caught up with some of the winners.
When I first read it, I knew it was very special. But of course you might just have a niche notion of what special is and that yourself and 5 other people will enjoy it. It's miraculous that in New York the whole town is on fire about it, and then you come to London and the same thing. So it's one of those marvellous combinations. But there are very, very good things in it. Very clever writing, very clever ideas, and it's playful, and of course it's witty. It doesn't underestimate the audience, and it doesn't underestimate the actors.
Sure. And just funny, what is it about working with Phoebe Waller-Bridge that you so enjoy? Because of course, you had to muscle in on Fleabag as well.
I did. When Phoebe walks into a room, the whole place lights up. You know, she's just got that glorious spirit. And when she says, you know, and will you come and do a bit on Fleabag? You go, yes. I mean, you don't go no. You think, what is in her mind? And I had no idea, and I'm really glad I did it.
How has Bandersnatch informed your writing and how you approached the next batch of Black Mirrors?
Well, by being incredibly complicated, it made anything other than doing that seem like a breeze. I would sum it up like that.
Yeah, okay. It was very complex. I think it nearly broke us, didn't it?
You say nearly,
Okay,
I say
it did
definitely.
break us. Official.
Yeah.
Because by trying to make it simple and accessible, you have to sort of take all of that complexity and streamline it, and it was just very painstakingly difficult. Yeah.
Annoyingly, what we want is old, bad talent. Like, that's really what we want. And then annoyingly, we keep accidentally finding
Isn't
these
that us?
young, brilliant people. Yeah, no, we're old.
We're the old bad talent.
But you're classing us as talent.
We are blessed. We have a wonderful casting director and Gina J. And yeah, you want that combination of, but no, actually you just want the best person for the role. Mm-hmm. And so it's that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And whoever that happens to be.
Yeah.
The way that we react to things is probably the way the public does. And it's one of those jobs, when you read the script, you just think this is going to be terrific. And then we sat around a table and we read it all, and you thought, this is going to be amazing. Stephen Frears himself, who directed it, said that he didn't sit down for the read-through, and it was long. And he paced around this enormous table, saying to himself, well, all I can do now is ruin it. And of course he absolutely didn't. And really, everything begins with the written word, and it was a crackingly good book.
It was written with such a cheeky tone, and yet, of course, the very subject matter is one of the most heinous crimes you can possibly commit.
I know. I mean, the feeling always was that you couldn't make it up, this story. I doubt that anybody could, because you'd say, oh, come on, that would never happen. And I, who remember it, I mean, unfortunately, I'm that old. And indeed, we all just thought, well, this is really strange. Oh, God, something's not right here. But we all went along with the verdict. So to peel back the layers and realise that actually there was something else happening, something very murky, I think is, that's the best you can hope from a story, that it gives a punch that you will not forget.
Welcome back to What to Watch with me, Toby Earle, the show that aims to guide you through your week's viewing and give you a glimpse behind the scenes and hear from the stars. Coming up, I'll give you the TV picks of the week, which are almost as good as this time-lapse video of a dog growing into a furry Godzilla. But first, Benjamin is the directorial debut of Simon Amstell, who also wrote this tender and at times self-flagellating comedy. Colin Morgan plays Benjamin, a director so racked by self-doubt it extends beyond the release of his next film to his personal life when he meets a talented singer. Benjamin is in cinemas now, and when we spoke, Amstell described how this was an attempt to figure himself out and what he had to do to embrace intimacy.
I think I wrote it as a way of trying to figure out what was wrong with me in my 20s. And I figured that out now, because I know that this is a character who is desperately seeking love from an audience. He wants his film to do really well so he can get all that validation. But what he really needs is to experience intimacy with just one person. And he can't do that because he doesn't believe that he deserves love. There's a moment in the film where Benjamin meets this beautiful French musician called Noah. Noah is flirting with Benjamin. Benjamin doesn't understand that that could possibly be happening to him. Noah says, "Can I come back to your flat?" That's really odd for Benjamin, but he comes back to the flat. Noah tries to kiss Benjamin, and Benjamin, before he can receive the kiss, says, "Do you want to see the film that I made?" And then they sit down and watch some of the film because Benjamin doesn't believe that he deserves to just be kissed without earning it.
But so that's the question is how does one earn that intimacy if they're not entirely sure what the path to intimacy is?
You surrender.
Is it?
You surrender to the moment and you just allow something to happen rather than controlling the situation. We become adults and it becomes quite difficult. We become embarrassed. We're full of shame, and all that childlike joy, all that running around and not worrying what you were wearing or what you looked like, or if something you said might be a bit silly. That's all. It all goes. We become very small and contained, and you have to do a lot of work to get rid of all that stuff, and constantly as well. There's this constant. It was nice to notice how different I am to the character, and sometimes it's hard to notice that because I kind of am the character. But when we premiered the film, I was kind of nervous because I had to do a speech at the beginning. There was a Q&A. I was watching the film for the first time with an audience. Would they laugh? Would they not laugh? Thankfully, they laughed a lot. But I was nervous, and I thought, Benjamin gets very nervous. There's a film within the film, and he gets nervous at the premiere of his film, and he has a terrible evening. He's also made a worse film than this one, so that doesn't help. But I thought, why be Benjamin? You fictionalize this aspect of yourself. It's pointless to fictionalize this part of yourself without removing yourself from it. And so I had a great time, actually, in the end.
So I've made a film. I'm a film person. What's it about? My inability to love.
For me, with stand-up, the things that my audience seem to only laugh at things that feel true and that probably are true. And so I end up with a load of material that's just honest. And so then when it comes to making this film, it's just full of behavior that you can relate to. It's full of moments that you feel upset about or cringe or, it connects with people. I've always spoken about stuff like this just because it was how I was feeling at the time. So it doesn't feel to me like a topical film. It just feels like this is how these characters feel. And but I'm glad everyone's banging on about it, because what I found in the work that I've done is that the truth sets me free over and over again. I feel ashamed or awkward or embarrassed about something, and I say the thing out loud, and I'm free suddenly. So the more people do that, the better for everyone.
And now for the TV news in briefs. In That's Good Timing news, Sky have announced a new drama called Cobra, starring Robert Carlyle as the Prime Minister handling the government during a crisis. As if that had happened. And that was the TV news in briefs. Now, stop wondering what you might call a pig that paints. A name which sounds like a famous artist. Pig. David Portney. Anyway, it's time for my TV picks of the week. The muted, refined atmospheres of art galleries is not where antique dealer Barnaby has been spending time during the action comedy Bounty Hunters. He's been dealing in looted Syrian artifacts, been stuck with terrorists, and is now on the run from Mexican drug barons. Happens all the time to art historians. This Wednesday at 10 p.m. on Sky One, we discover how his sister, Leah, is faring in a Mexican prison. According to charity Wakefield, she's the sort who takes all of this in her stride.
What happens is we get ourselves into even more trouble.
Yeah.
And there's another sort of heist that takes place without giving too much away. And we're now in the second series more involved in the art world. So it's still kind of an action comedy adventure. And I don't want to give the plot away, but we're in the world of inappropriate artworks, or in the previous one it was kind of inappropriate antiquities, but essentially we find out that our father has done another double deal that we haven't known about. Something happens to Jack, I can say that, Jack's character. And so Leah is pulled into more of kind of the hero role, and her and Nina Morales have to work together, even though they're so different and they don't really like each other by this point, to help to save Jack's life. So her character's pushed into something a little bit more serious and emotional, which was really fun to play as well, to kind of see how that character, who normally doesn't actually have to do anything serious, has to suddenly kind of knuckle down. But what I like about this character is that she's not attached to like any kind of boyfriend storyline. We don't care who she's romantically involved with. She's just a character in her own right. She's funny, she's ballsy, she's unpredictable, she does things wrong, she says the wrong thing, and that's all just great stuff to play. And generally speaking, female characters aren't always like that. I don't think she's changed me, but I think doing the show genuinely, on a more serious note, has actually changed me, because I've loved watching Jack work, and he's such an amazing creative. He writes, he does presenting, he acts beautifully, he's incredibly generous to be around, he wants everything to be good, and he'll happily forsake something that he's doing if something over there is feeling a bit better comically. He looks after you as another actor on set. He's thinking all the time about what everybody's doing. He looks after the crew, and he's constantly inventing and thinking how things could be better. And I think until then, because I hadn't really done a comedy quite like this before, I'd very much approached things thinking, these are my lines and this is the extent of what I do. And now I think I approach things thinking, these are the lines, I'm going to make this the best that I can, and what? And I just think more on the line, and that's really helped me for the show that I'm doing at the moment, this play that I'm doing, which is called Amelia. And it's a biopic of someone's life, but we all play quite big comedy characters in it. And it's helped me in that process, because I'm playing William Shakespeare in it, and I'm playing a comedy, quite a comic version of him. And similarly to Leah, he is very free with what he says. He's William Shakespeare. So that's allowed me, that process of working with Jack and Freddie has really opened something in me that's allowed me to be more free with coming up with ideas. Those ideas may never get used. They might just be for the rehearsal, or they may end up in the script, which is a couple of ad-libs that I've done have ended up in our script of Amelia. It's just kind of given me a different kind of process, and to be kind of, to create stuff, but also just to be able to let it go if it doesn't work. And that's really nice. I've really enjoyed that. I would say things are massively changing this year. I think shows like Fleabag, Catastrophe, and there are loads that are happening this year where there's just brilliant, ballsy kind of female characters that are leading these TV shows. And then, yeah, I think people are getting a lot more creative and realising that we want to see women in these kind of roles.
The news that scientists have reversed time using a quantum computer could be the best way to break the Brexit deadlock. But then that would mean some relationships would never form, such as the one in Germaine and LC, on London Live this Friday at 9 p.m. LC is pro-Leave, pro-Trump and unapologetically racist, all of which has contributed to several of her carers quitting. When Germaine, her new carer, arrives, a battle of wills turns into a strange friendship.
Is there anything specific you'd like me to do, Mrs. Williams?
I've got arthritis. I'm not demented. Let's get it right. I want me all way hoovering and take the rubbish out.
That's not a problem.
You come in this house to work. Do you understand?
That's it for this week. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back next week at 6:30 on Monday. Or watch the show as it streams on London Live's Twitter at 12:30 p.m. lunchtime on Tuesdays while you have a... I'll be back next Monday, so keep watching.